Hello and welcome to another Mikhail Tal video, and I'm excited today to bring a game review, and it features a battle between one of the greatest attacking players and one of the greatest defensive players. So it's really a battle of tactics versus strategy, and throughout the history of chess, many players have wondered, is it better to have a tactical ability or a strategic ability? You probably need both, but let's find out what happens here, where we have Mikhail Tal, who was world champion from 60 to 61, and he's playing Karpov, who became champion in 1975 when he gained the title by forfeit after Bobby Fischer did not defend his title. And that's a real shame that we never got to see Fischer and Karpov play against one another. It could have been a great battle. So Karpov held his title from 75 to 85, and then Kasparov defeated Karpov and became the new world champion. So this game takes place in 87, a few years after Karpov had lost his title. Now, Tal is much older at this point, past his prime, but let's see what happens. We have Tal, the master tactician, attacking player. He wants more tactics, so he plays e4. Just like Bobby Fischer. Bobby Fischer felt that pushing this pawn in front of the king was one of the best moves, and especially if you want to attack. And now, this is very interesting, Karpov, a more strategic player, plays c6, the Caro-Kann defense, which can be a lot more strategic and a weapon that is used to kind of blunt the attacking power of this e4 opening. And what does Tal do? He immediately tries to open things up by bringing his c-pawn in. Now both pawns are attacking here on this d5 square, and normally in the Caro-Kann the next move would be to bring this pawn in here, but then we would have capture, recapture, and Tal would be left with an isolated queen pawn. But let's see what happens here. Sure enough, Karpov does continue with the normal Caro-Kann move, and this is called the accelerated Panov attack. So now after capture, capture, recapture, and instead of the queen capturing, because then the knight could jump out here and target the queen if the queen would have immediately captured that pawn. Instead, we have this move here, knight to f6, so that the knight will be able to capture here. So now knight protects, we have the capture, and instead of trading off more material, if Capablanca, if Tal were to capture Karpov's knight, that would just help Karpov develop his queen into the center. So the game continues with Karpov trading down material, and he probably figures if Capablanca repairs his pawn structure, well then the queens could be traded. That would go closer to an end game, which Karpov probably preferred. So let's see what happens. Of course, Tal captures towards the center, keeping the queens on the board because Tal is a great attacking player and wants to maintain the queens. That way he has more attacking power. So we have the bishop preparing to fianchetto here, and Karpov will be able to castle soon. So d4 is played, which will kind of block the scope of the bishop, and now fianchettoing of the bishop. Tal goes ahead and develops his bishop and gets ready to castle, and now we have both sides castling. So what is going on in this position? Well, we see that Tal has 3 pawn islands, an isolated pawn over here on A2, which could be a weakness. But he has 2 pieces developed, and Karpov only has 1, but now, Karpov develops his knight. So the game continues with rook to E1. And so far, things have been somewhat calm, nothing too crazy. But if you can look down here and check out these next moves, it looks like a lot of insanity is about to happen because look at all these. Well, we have a brilliant move in here. We have inaccuracies, mistakes by both sides. So it looks like the game is about to get crazy here. So let's see what happens. The first mistake of the game, rook to E8. And I don't know, this doesn't look like anything too crazy. So let's see if we can figure out why this will be a mistake. It looks like bishop to G4 would have been better. Just developing the bishop, pinning the knight to the queen. So, if we go back, that is what should have been played. And then after that, the rook can grab the half-open file and target this unprotected pawn. But in the game, we had rook to E8, the mistake, first mistake of the game. And a missed opportunity. Apparently, rook to B1 should have been played here. But Tal decides to develop his bishop up here, pinning this central pawn to the queen right here. And so the game continues with bishop to E6. And now we have a missed opportunity by Karpov. What should he have done? Well, it looks like it would have been better to go down here, pinning the knight to the queen. So the game continues with a brilliant move, sacrificing the rook here for the exchange. So bishop is off the board. Now the rook's off the board. We have doubled isolated pawns on a half-open file, so that could be an endgame target in the future for Tal. So now the game continues with bishop pressing up to C4 and immediately targeting this unprotected pawn, but also lining up on the king as well. The computer prefers queen to B3, which would have done the same thing, but that would also target this pawn, with the possibility of capturing and then also attacking the knight here. So the game continues with the queen pressing forward. Tal does likewise. The pressure is building up on this pawn here. So now we have the knight dropping back to defend, which seems like an okay move. It does put that knight on the back rank, which is not so great. It looks like king to H8 would have been a better move, to just go ahead and let that pawn fall. But Karpov is ahead by +2 as far as material here, and he just wants to hold on to his material, it looks like. So the game continues with the rook adding more pressure to this pawn. But that is an inaccuracy. It looks like retreating this bishop back to B2 would have been better. Let's see what happens next here. So the rook grabs the half-open file, targeting the bishop and the pawn. Now, the bishop is protected at the moment. So the game continues with knight dropping back here. Now we have a mistake by Tal. Apparently H4 would have been better. So the game continues with, now the king does move into the corner, a move that was recommended earlier, but now this is a missed opportunity. Apparently queen to c7 would have been better. And things are just getting kind of tricky here. So let's see what Tall has in mind. He jumps forward attacking the queen, and that's probably why it would have been better to drop that queen back to get out of the line of fire of this knight. So the queen does drop back to c7. We have the bishop that was under attack by this queen rook battery and only defended by the queen. It retreats. And now we have these isolated pawns, which are a long-term endgame weakness, and Tall tries to get rid of those by trading off pawns here. So what does Tall do? He ignores that, pushing the h-pawn, perhaps with a potential threat of just moving forward here and opening things up, trying to generate an attack against Karpov's king. So after capture, that is ignored and the attack commences here. And this is apparently a great move, according to the computer. So now we have capture, and that is a blunder. And it looks like that's a game-losing blunder, so we'll have to see why. Well, I guess one reason the queen could capture and line up on the king here, and also threaten this rook at the same time. So let's see how things continue. Sure enough, the queen does capture, and that was not the best move in the position. A missed opportunity. Tall is still ahead, but he's not winning anymore at the moment. It looks like knight to f6 would have been the best move in the position, and that's a pretty crazy move. What could happen here? With this move, you can't really capture, or the queen would capture the rook here with a check. It looks like the best thing to do is knight to f7, and then the knight can just go ahead and capture the rook here. So that is how the game could have played out, but instead we have a capture here, targeting the rook, lining up on the king. And so now Karpov brings his rook over to safety, placing it on the half-open file, targeting this pawn, which is adequately protected by king and knight at the moment. So the game continues with the bishop lining up, and this is looking dangerous, lining up on the h7 pawn along with the queen. If this knight jumps out of the way, maybe to here, then we would have all three pieces attacking. But the pawn could try and push forward. Queen could push up to g6, renew the threat. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's see what actually happens here. So we had bishop to c2. Now a great move is played by Karpov, queen to e5, and the game is much more even now. It looks like Tall has almost lost most of his advantage, but things are tricky, and Tall was known for trying to cause incredible complications and tactical possibilities that would confuse his opponent. And he was known for saying that he liked to take his opponents into a deep, dark forest of variations where 1 + 1 = 3. Anyway, let's see what happens here. We have the knight dropping back. Oh, wow. And this is pretty crazy. The knight drops back here where the rook can just be captured. And apparently that's the best move. So sure enough, we have the capture. What else could have been played here besides that knight move. Well, the rook could jump up here to e2, where the queen would be protecting it. But then you would have h6, attacking this bishop, and the bishop can't move because then the queen would be captured. So things are getting tricky here. We have this crazy move where Tal just says, come on, take my rook. So Karpov captures the rook with check, and then we have the king running, and a blunder is played here. So what would have been best? Let's take a look at this. Okay, if we go back, and yeah, this move would be hard to find. It looks like the best thing to play here, and the issue is that there is a checkmate threat here. So the best move would have been bishop to h6 to just give up this bishop. So let's take a look at that. Bishop to h6, then it looks like capture, rook to f7 to help guard this pawn and defend the king. And now, oh wow, you could have bishop to g7 or bishop takes h7. So we'll take a look at that. And what would be best here? Oh, wow. Yeah, such a crazy game. You can't capture here because then the queen would deliver a mate on the back rank. So what else could be played? It looks like rook to c6 is c6 is the best move that keeps the game even. And I think that was the only move. Yes, the only move. And this stuff is just crazy complicated. Karpov probably preferring quieter games, was unsettled by these crazy tactical possibilities. All right. And Karpov was a world champion, so it wasn't that he couldn't play tactical games. He just preferred to keep things quieter. So here, what do we have? Bishop to e4. Yeah, anyway, here the game would be even. So let's get back to where we were. The queen had captured the rook with check. King up to h2. And then the blunder was played here. So we have a blunder. And it looks like the best move is found. Capture. And here, very dangerous. You don't want to capture this because then there's a mate in two. After capture, the king can only run where? Here, and then it would be mate on h7. So after this capture, it looks like Tal is just winning here. d3 is recommended by the computer, but that's not looking good either. So the king tries to run for its life, but now we have capture and a counter capture over here, which is a mistake. Trying to get some kind of counterplay, targeting the bishop. If we go back, what could have been played here after bishop takes g7? Oh, wow. It looks like rook to f6. Yeah, but Karpov is a goner at this point. So he cracks even more under the pressure. Now we have a check. King is running for its life. Check again. And now discovered attack. And this is where Karpov resigned because, what is possible here? The only move is that. King to h8, and then there would be a mate on the next move. So, crazy attacking game there by Tall. Well past his prime, but still a force to be reckoned with, I guess you could say, in his later career. And he didn't live much longer. I think he died in the 90s. He was known to have health problems throughout his life that affected his play. So, if his health had been better, who knows? We could have seen even more brilliant games from Mikhail Tal, one of the greatest attackers of all time. So, let's see the accuracy rating here. Tal played with an 89.5% accuracy and Karpov 71.6%. So, Karpov was a great player. Perhaps the game just spun out of control or he had a bad day. One brilliant move by Tal, three great moves, one great move by Karpov. But now the bad moves. Three inaccuracies by Tal. Karpov had one. But three mistakes by Karpov, one mistake by Tal. They both had two missed opportunities, but two blunders by Karpov. So it looks like just a rough game for Karpov. He played at only a 2200 level, and Tal played at a 2600 level. So in the opening, they both had 100% accuracy, but 86.3% middle game accuracy for Tal, and only 61.7 for Karpov. So I think he just came under fire there and kind of fell apart, which, we all can understand that happening at times. All right. Well, feel free to leave comments, like, and subscribe to support the channel if you haven't already. Thank you for watching and have a super chess day.